Welcome to another episode of Plain Air, the number one podcast currently sick and tired of the world. We're your hosts. No laughing aloud. We're your hosts, AJ and Sally.
We have a very distinguished guest today in the studio. His name is John Cody Clark, the man with three names. I met John for the first time in a class called Illustration Design Lab at Art Center. He was very quiet and kept to himself, but I remember being struck by his maturity and stoicism, and of course, his work. He had a very academic atelier sensibility, specifically graphite drawing and oil painting. His chops were super next level, and he was always attending life drawing and life painting sessions after class. I really found his work ethic astonishing, the way he'd always be in his studio long after everyone went home. And I would come to find out that this was simultaneously due to his drive and his circumstance. But I'll let him tell his story.
I know we say this in every episode, but we really do mean it when we say that we're super, super grateful for our guests. And John is no exception. Like, I always love hearing him talk about art and design, his travels, and just basically anything because he's such a good speaker and he's always so generous with sharing his knowledge. So before I start rambling on and on, let's just cut to the chase and get to the interview.
Hi, John.
Hello.
Hi, John.
What's good?
The man with three names.
Yeah. John Cody Clark.
Do people say stuff about that?
No, I mean safe stuff. Some people want to always introduce me by my full name, like my art director and stuff. But as a weird note, like I've noticed a lot of famous assassins have three names. Lee Harvey Oswald. Like
when you said assassins, I just immediately thought of someone
Yeah.
like
Mark David Chapman,
yeah,
the dude who killed John Lennon.
yeah. And
Oh.
who shot Lincoln? I can't remember his name.
John Wilkes Booth.
Yeah, John Wilkes Booth.
Oh,
Yeah.
Damn! Oh shit!
what are you planning?
I don't.
John
yeah,
Cody
my moment
Clark?
is coming. I guess it'll be news to me. I'll just be woken up one day like a sleeper cell or something. Yeah.
Sick.
All
How you
right.
feeling, John?
Chilling. I know. I always say chilling.
Sure.
That's like my default answer.
Oh.
I'm not sure anybody ever believes me. I don't know, but
I believe you.
yeah,
You seem like you're chilling all the time.
yeah. Maybe on the outside.
Inside's all hectic.
Yeah.
John Cody Clark.
Mhm.
Oh, we're talking. are we repeating all that again? Okay. This
No,
is the
I
official
want to
start?
ask.
Mhm.
Born and raised in San Diego.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, let's talk about your life, John.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dude.
Because
Paint-
I actually don't know much about your origin.
Yeah.
Your origin stories.
Yeah, you want the lore.
Yeah, why not?
yeah. What was it like? Paint us a picture of growing up in San Diego.
It was not really all that exciting. I think now, looking back, it seems kind of like stereotypical, like millennial. Obviously, depending on where what kind of millennial you are, but I grew up like in North County, San Diego, in suburbia, and like the community was single family homes, and there's like 4 models, and you just choose one of the models, right? So it wasn't bad. Obviously, I didn't have to like worry about like food or anything like that. My parents were like lower middle class. They kind of like were just above the line, I guess. But yeah, it was pretty relaxed as like a kid. And but San Diego at the time, still now, doesn't really have like a ton of art stuff. So it was mostly like growing up playing video games and skating and reading comic books and like Pokemon cards.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. And like art was something that I did for myself, just more casually, right? Like just like as a hobby. Um, there was no like model for me necessarily. My parents, they're not artists or anything like that. So it was just something that I would do to distract myself when I like wasn't, I wasn't paying attention in class. So um, yeah, like actual San Diego was just suburban stuff, like pretty basic. I don't know.
What led you to pursue art in a more serious way? Because it's your hobby, like initially you said that,
Mm,
but based on what I know about you, like you deep dive into your hobbies.
mm,
So like it's not some I I can't imagine, and you know so much about art history as well.
mm.
I can't imagine it as just like a casual little fun thing you just
Yeah,
do on the side whenever. Like it seems like it's something you were, or maybe it
yeah.
wasn't. I don't know.
Well, I mean, like the journey to like, I guess, quote unquote, being like a professional or taking it serious was like pretty long. Just like because I grew up just drawing in the margins of my schoolwork and all that kind of stuff. I never thought that I was going to go to college. Um, I didn't really know anything about like art as a business. Um, didn't know any artists. Um, and like my school counselor told my mom that like I wasn't going to go to college, so there's like no reason for me to take the SATs.
What kind of shitty counselor is that? I mean, like
Yeah, I
you
was
got a
like
counsel.
yeah, I was like a
Yeah.
C student. Like I qualified to like leave high school. I didn't, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like I filled the requirements. Um
Did it actually try to give you options or something? Like you said you wanted to pursue maybe art, and did they
yeah.
actually try to help you out or
Well, like I back then it
or
was kind of like, you take those tests of like what do you want to be when you grow up or what are you good at? And they would say like graphic designer, which
Mhm.
like to me graphic designer was just like type, which I wasn't really that interested in. I always loved drawing people, and just like tracing comic book pages and stuff. So I was like, no, I don't want to be a graphic designer. Um, at the time, the closest thing I wanted to be was a comic book artist, but I didn't really know what that meant. That was just like I knew that people drew comics, and so like, and I had heard of like a school. Like the Adam Kubert school, like Adam Kubert is there's like a family, the Kuberts, that do a lot of like superhero stuff. And I was like, oh, well, there's a school for comic book art. Like, I'll just go there. But like, it wasn't real. I was just kind of like saying it. But um, yeah, after just like getting past high school, I went to community college, and at first it was kind of like just high school 2.0. They give you a placement test, and I just like didn't even try. I got put in like English one, and I think like algebra one or something, and I was like, this is gonna be a waste of time. Um, and I took one art class that was kind of just like art 100 or whatever, right? Like it's they're real basic. All the assignments are pretty lack of character or interest. But I decided like, okay, well, I'll just, you know, I made it through one semester. I'll do the next one. And I was looking at the catalog and they had life drawing. And so I had always been curious about life drawing and drawing people. And so I was like, I'll take it. And that was kind of like, in a way, like the origin point, you know? Um, like it's, I don't know, it's like scientists, they measure like space and time by like 0000 or whatever, like its location and time or something. That's kind of like, that's kind of what it is like I could do life drawing for the rest of my life. That's like the purest version of what I love to do. So like that just opened everything up.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
yeah, that's interesting that I feel like for a lot of creatives, I mean we hear about this same story with a lot of our friends where you're not seen as like a good student, or you're not seen as a hardworking, but it's just everyone has their own path, and
Mm,
you can't force someone into that same mold, like
Yeah.
of our crappy education system.
Yeah, yeah.
And you got to give people time.
Yeah. I had like one of the things about my high school, like since we were in like suburbia, it wasn't necessarily like underfunded or something. Like we did
Mm,
have like art classes. There was an art history class, which I never took because I was terrible at English. And so I was like, well, I don't want to have to write papers, you know? And at that time, I guess like, mentally I was much more like compartmentalized.
mm,
So I was like, well, or I would look at things and like, oh, I would categorize it by like what I don't want to do. Right. So I don't want to do it because I don't want to write papers. We did have an animation class, and that class was really sort of like important for a lot of nerds because at the time, like gay people couldn't get married, and like the teacher was like queer, and it was like really sort of a safe haven for a lot of the like outsiders, and like those outsiders included nerds, and so that class was really social. And so even though we would get to go in there and be nerds and talk about like cool stuff and comic books, and we would, do one of the assignments is the bouncing ball, and like we would work on that while watching like anime on the projector. Um, and so that class was really fun. So much fun that like I didn't really do that well in it. um, and at one point he was like, you can't come back if you don't get like a B or higher. And I got like a C. And then like I took that kind of personally. And then like I saw him like I think 2 semesters later, and he was like, "Why didn't you come back?" And I was like, "You kicked me out." But I didn't respond to that kind of um, teaching back then. You know what I mean?
mhm,
I don't really respond to that kind of teaching now, anyway. But like, yeah, punishment isn't like a motivator for me. So I don't know. Like it was. We did have some interesting stuff. We had another art class that was like basically Art 100, and I took that. And yeah, just a lot of them just weren't fun, or like they weren't the way in. Like life drawing was really like, because once I started doing life drawing, then I cared about everything else.
mm,
So like I took life drawing, and I was at community college for 5 years, and like that second semester after that, I always had a life drawing class. I took the life. There was only 2 life drawing classes. I took both of them so many times that they were like, you can't sign up for them anymore.
Really?
Yeah.
They're like, we don't want money.
Yeah, that's what I was like. I don't understand.
That's so
What was it about life drawing that clicked for you? Like what is it that attracted to you about that kind of drawing specifically?
I think like first off, I always loved drawing people, so that was part of it. Um, the other part too is that like it it's like it's just like a pure version of it, right? Like you can learn everything about art essentially through life drawing. So like you can learn about proportion and form, obviously likeness, gesture, emotion, and you can learn, even like atmospheric perspective and overlapping shapes and all this stuff. And it like I think I've always been a little bit more academic in the sense that like certainly some of my drawings were that for a long time, but to me, academia was like a dream. Like I never thought of myself like going to college, but like I always dreamed about like going to college. Um, and mostly that was formed by like, the East Coast, like all these old buildings and trees and stuff like that.
mm,
But I was like an outsider to all that kind of thing. Um, I think I also, there's a certain like romanticism about like doing something really, really well. Like a classic example is like Japanese like swordsman, crafts or whatever, right? Like folding all that steel and doing something like that. And so like that was kind of like my version of that was like life drawing. And I had like rules where like I wouldn't like oftentimes the model would change poses and like people would move their location to get the like best drawing, and I would just I'm like, I'm not going to move, I'm going to take whatever the model gives. And sometimes you got like ugly drawings. Like we had this like Russian grandma who like literally bent over one time, and I got a view of everything, and I didn't move. I just drew it, you know, because like you don't get better at doing stuff if you do it when it's easy, right?
That's awesome
Mhm.
that you had
Um,
the wherewithal to like know how you would get the most out of
yeah,
that class. You know, that making it harder for yourself. You know.
yeah, because it's like faces are pretty easy to draw like upright because we look at faces all the time and we're really sensitive to it. But then when you got to draw a face that's like laying down, or that's like prone or something, and it's you got the weight of the face like into the mat or the floor or whatever, right? Like that's when it gets hard. Or if they're upside down, depending on how athletic the model is. Um, yeah, you don't want to like just always draw, somebody from the perspective that we always see necessarily, because
Mhm.
that doesn't, you lose some of the challenge like that eventually. So,
We life drawing models are such characters. I remember when I was in community college, we had a guy named Mr.
mm.
Drip, and
Mr. Drip?
his dick would drip, and then he
Oh
would
my
just
god!
like he'd wipe his dick
Oh my
mid pose
god!
and just like wipe it on his leg,
Oh my god!
and it always
Wait, so
dripped.
this
That's crazy.
did he call himself Mr. Drip?
I think it might have been my someone. I don't
Oh
know.
my gosh.
I don't want to. I don't know. I don't know who said it, but
Yeah.
maybe it was just me.
Yeah.
But yeah, we also had this dude who like
Yeah.
he had like a Prince Albert, and like his balls were like cheetah print. Like he tattooed cheetah print on his
Yeah.
balls, and he had like all these crazy
Yeah.
tattoos. But he was like a lot older. I'm sure people
I
listening
think I
that
know
took,
who
yeah,
you're
you've
talking
definitely
about.
Yeah.
he's definitely made the rounds at like a lot of
Yeah.
schools. But he was sick.
Yeah. Yeah, it can
Yeah.
be crazy.
But they're just cool. They're always
Mm-hmm.
cool people.
We at community college we had a lot of just like normal people.
Okay.
Not because like in San Diego there it's not big enough to have like professional models essentially. Like Art Center had like models that's all they do is life drawing and stuff.
Yeah.
But they also had like
Mm-hmm.
legit models who are like doing photos or
Mm-hmm.
other stuff, even some like adult content stuff. But
Mhm.
like we had just like kind of like normal everyday people. I remember one time I saw one of the models like in the grocery store,
Oh.
and I was like trying to place her. I was like, oh, you look so fun. And we like made contact, eye contact, and like kind of looked at each other, and had a moment of realization like, oh yes, like life drawing.
Mhm. You're like, I
you
need to
know
fully recognize you if you
yeah.
took your clothes off.
Yeah, so it was kind of like a nod of like, what's
That's
up.
cool.
um but yeah, there's some characters,
She's
I don't
like, I
know.
like that drawing you did of me.
I mean, yeah, they love seeing it.
They're like, I mean, community college, like they would walk around and look, and
Yeah.
they'd be
Yeah.
stoked.
Yeah.
Like
Mm-hmm.
I think that happened less at like Art Center.
Mm. I
But
had a very similar experience to you in community college. Like there was one class that changed it for me, but
yeah,
your frame of mind where you're like, this is what I don't want to do. Like
yeah,
this is what's going to inform what I do, and that's exactly what
yeah.
I did in community college. Because for you it was life drawing, for me it was printmaking,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and then yeah. But
That's
you
dope.
mentioned art center. Let's like, so you're at was it Palomar was the school
Yeah,
for 5 years, and then
yeah.
where does art center fall into this timeline?
Well, like, yeah, so Palomar, there were Art Center alumni that like taught there. One of them taught like Sean Cheatham. Like he used to teach a rendering class at Art Center, and they had like one of the assignments would be like you would like do a little still life setup with like a glass of wine on like a checkerboard, like a chessboard, and you had to do this drawing of all these different values with like just the hard, like the pencils with their hardness, not like smudging anything. um and I remember going to Cheatham's studio, and he still had that piece, and it was like a
Crazy.
crazy like full circle moment because like I had been at community college and that teacher was telling me about it. So that was kind of like my introduction, because after life drawing, I just started taking as many like classes, like art classes as I could. So like I started taking art history classes. Then I took like painting classes and rendering type classes and all that kind of stuff. So, and that's where I got more exposed to like really where to go afterwards, because I was plateauing,
Mm-hmm.
and like it was like, okay, well, if I'm going to get better, then I have to go somewhere.
Was
And
was there a goal? Like,
No.
in community college? It was just take as many art
Yeah,
classes as
the goal was
possible.
just to learn and get better.
Mm,
That's awesome.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I, that's the best thing,
Yeah.
like as a student
That's
or
funny that
even
you,
in life.
yeah, that's funny you say you're a bad student because that's like the most
Yeah.
ideal student.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess you just had to find what you're interested in.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think like that's one of the things I realized like for example with art history is that you just sort of need your way in. Not everybody's way in is the same thing because like when I'm learning about art history, it's like okay, now I care about like the Industrial Revolution, or now I care about like post-war World War II stuff and whatever. Whereas like there are certain segments of history that I just wasn't really interested in, but obviously it makes sense that art history would go along with history. But classes aren't necessarily taught like that. Like history classes in public schools weren't taught like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was like plateauing, and I went to like one of those college recruitment like portfolio reviews, and there's like a bunch of schools there, right? And you just show them your portfolio and see what they say. And I talked to like, I talked to like Otis and SVA and a handful of them, and I got an Laguna College of Art and Design. I talked to them too, and a bunch of them were all really kind. They were like, "Oh, your stuff's great. Like you could come in like a year like ahead. Like we'll give you like scholarship. Come like hang out at our like come meet our staff and stuff." And I was like, "Oh, cool." And Art Center had a reputation at the time, so I was like, okay, well, I want to see what they have to say, right? And I don't remember who I talked to because I pretty much know everybody there or knew everybody there now, um, but he was like, yeah, your stuff's okay. And I was
Playing
like,
hard to get,
yeah,
negging you a little bit.
yeah. And in my mind, I was like, well, I want to go, if I'm going to be in debt, I want to go to someplace that's not going to like BS me, that's going to be critical. That's going to give me like, cause I was somebody who had no rigor, right? Like in high school, I would just stay up all night drawing or playing video games, and then like wake up late and like walk to school and be late, sleep through most of the day. So like at this point, now that I'm invested, like I wanted that rigor. And so like part of that art center reputation appealed to me. Um, and yeah, so that I didn't really think I was going to get in, but I just, I sent a portfolio and I got in. And once I got in, it was like, all right, like we got to figure out what the roller coaster is, because my parents didn't go to community or didn't go to college, and so I had no model to really help me navigate all that stuff. Um, but once I was in art center, um, it was kind of crazy because I remember one of my first term teachers, for perspective, um, he like I was doing a lot of terrible drawings, even though I was like understanding the principles. All the drawings were just like ugly or not appealing, and he was just like, you can do this, like you got in here, right? Like you're capable. And like I had never really had anybody like that like expect something of me
Wow.
before. So
Mhm.
like and especially something that I was like invested in, right? um like my mom would be like, I expect you to take the trash out. That's not the same. That's not the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, art center was like a complete turnaround from where I was like in high school, where like I didn't care about anything. I didn't care about any of the schoolwork or anything. And then my first like term in art center, I was like early to class, doing my homework, like immediately spending all your time doing homework, taking notes and like, yeah, doing all that. Like it was like a, much better student, like a complete 180 turnaround. So
It's awesome.
yeah.
You have one of the most unique journeys through school,
Mm,
and I know it took you a while. Could
yeah.
you give us some backstory? I know it was a long 8 years for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I started, like January 2011. And, I went for like 4.5 terms, and, um, it was crazy. It was like I said, I was a completely different student, and I was like fully invested in like art center. was so exciting for me because I was getting that rigor and I was also getting exposed to a lot of stuff that I'd never seen before. Like I didn't know what motion design was. Like I didn't know anybody who, designed cars. What is environmental design? I don't know. And so it was cool to be in this environment that I had like literally never seen or like imagined before of like a pure creative environment. Um, Especially at the scale that it was at, right? Because like the closest thing was just like community college classes, but community college is like I love community college. I think everybody should essentially go to community college and figure stuff out.
Me too.
Um, yeah, I don't regret it at all. I would do it again. But one of the problems with community college is that not everybody's invested at the same level, which makes sense, right? But like at Art Center, like everybody's invested at a level that in some cases don't make any sense. Like there were people that were like former doctors and they're
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
they're like I left I already have a degree and a career and I left it to be a graphic designer. And so like yeah, the students and that rigor and that environment was like totally new to me and really valuable and I loved it. Um I had been self financing basically. I'd been getting like loans, private and government loans. And after 4.5 terms, the private loans like wouldn't loan to me anymore. They changed their like requirements, and I didn't qualify anymore. So I don't know if like I'm older than you guys, but like if I look back on my life, there are only a few moments that are like legit like crossroads. And this is probably like the biggest crossroad of my life was that um here I was like being the best student I ever was and working really, really hard. And I couldn't finance the education anymore. And the only people that could finance it were like my grandparents because both my parents couldn't like co-sign for me. Um, and I was supposed to go to Berlin. I had been picked for that Berlin trip that they do, and back then it was 10 weeks in Berlin. It wasn't just
Wow.
like because
It was a legit study abroad.
yeah, because now it's just like you do the class and then you go, for like a couple weeks. I think it's like 14 days or something like that. But back then it was like yeah, like 10 weeks with like two really great instructors, and um, the term had started, and I was like begging my grandparents to co-sign, and my grandfather called me and was like, yeah, it's just not worth it. And I'm like, and that was it, right? Like the beginning of that term, that was like a fall term. Like that Monday, I was like planning on going to Berlin for 10 weeks that for this class I got chosen for. By the end of that week, I had, dropped out of school, broken my lease, moved back to San Diego, and had a job like on Monday in a warehouse, which is like what I was doing before I went to school, to Art Center. So like, and none of that was because of me, right? Like it wasn't like I failed the classes and I got kicked out of school, or it was purely just like you know a bank decided that they're not going to give me money anymore, and like somebody else decided that they're not going to like help me. Um, and like I was definitely now looking back that like legit set my life back like 10 years. So after that, like I went home to San Diego for like a year, and I was working. My buddy had a job at this clothing company that made video game clothing. They're not around anymore, but they had licenses for like World of Warcraft and Minecraft. Minecraft was their big one. And he was like, yeah, we need seasonal people in the warehouse. So I got signed on and started doing that. Um, I didn't like draw for like 6 months after leaving because I was just like so, like fucked up over it. Um, but after like working in the warehouse and just looking at the bay doors, like I was like, I got to get back. And that itch to keep like drawing and getting back to like making stuff was like just there. So after a year, I decided like I knew that we could apply for scholarship outside of the term. And obviously I needed a lot of scholarship. So the plan was like, I'll just put my shit in my van and drive back. And, I knew I could work for the department because my first semester at Art Center, I started working for the illustration department in the office. And knew I could do that, that they would let me come back. Um, and I just started living in the parking lot of the school. And working part time and like sitting in on classes, going to workshops, saving money, and like applying for scholarship. Um, and after a year of doing that, I got scholarship from Anfield. She got me money to come back and re-enroll.
Wow.
Yeah, and then after that, I could only afford one semester a year, and it eventually took me basically like 8 years. 6 years of homelessness in the parking lot to like graduate.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I slept in my van before grad show and I slept in my van after grad show.
It was nuts, man. I remember you're like one of the hardest working people amongst, like you were saying, complete workhorses at that school. But
Mm-hmm.
like I early in the morning I'd see you, late at night in the studios I'd see
Yeah.
you. Yeah, I mean your
I had
life was
nowhere
on
to go.
campus. Yeah. But
Yeah.
dude, it blew my mind
Yeah.
that you were that dedicated.
Yeah, I didn't even know like that part of your story.
Yeah.
I just knew, oh, that's John from The Office. Like he's always there. Yeah, and
Yeah.
like, well, he's there because he has to be
Yeah.
there.
And it gets
Yeah.
cold up there. Like in the
Yeah.
wintertime, you were just in
Mm-hmm.
your van.
Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't like well insulated. I went through two vans actually. I had a van that I was like in an accident driving home a weekend. Somebody rear-ended me, and actually had that for I had that for a while, even after it got hit, because technically the frame got bent, but like you couldn't really tell. So I had to tie down it was a Honda Odyssey. So the back hatch, I like tied it down with like pararope,
Oh my God.
paracord. And then later I got in an accident driving back to Art Center from San Diego because it was like 12 at night and there was like furniture on the freeway. And I hit like a nightstand or something. I
Oh
don't
my
know.
God. Ugh.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought I was dead. Like, because it was like must have been like a black nightstand or something. All I could see was like I swerved around a couch, like a white couch. And then I just saw the corner, this like tiny little highlight. And I was
Dude.
like, oh no. Um, but that totaled it like that. When I hit that, it like the windshield cracked, the airbags went off. And then I was back home, for the summer and I got like a job at Michael's during that time, as like night stalking, um, and like saving money to get a vehicle, and I ended up getting a van, like a cargo van from like a Stanley
Mm.
steamer, and AJ helped me out. He gave me money. Do you remember that? Yeah,
No
yeah,
comment. No
yeah,
comment.
AJ's being
yeah,
humble.
No, I mean I don't know. I was always in complete admiration of your
yeah,
dedication, but like what was driving you? Like what kept you
yeah,
coming back and sleeping in your van and then working all through the summer just to make it back to school? Like if there
yeah.
was no end goal, like you said, you just want to get better, like what was it for you?
I don't know. I mean, it was always internal. Like I think like it's hard. Like none of us make it without help, right? But like some people obviously have more help than others. Um, to a certain extent, like there's a lot more people that were like who are surprised that I didn't quit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like the amount of help I had is like somewhat minimal, with except for like a few like examples, but like it was me driving it, right? Like it was my internal like discipline or my just like
What
commitment.
what I'm curious, what kept like, I mean, like you didn't draw for 6 months after like you weren't able
Yeah.
to get loans. So like I imagine there was a lot going on in your head,
Mm.
especially like, just the bare minimum of having, family not trusting in your, in you and
Hmm.
in your efforts.
Yeah.
um like how because man, I feel like that would be such a tough hole, like
Hmm.
such a tough dark place to get
Hmm.
myself out of if it were to happen to me,
Yeah.
you know like how
Yeah.
did you.
I mean, like the thing is like since it was always internal, like I had a perspective for a long time that was kind of like I'm not really drawing because it's necessarily like fun or like or I want to be famous or I want to sell products or anything.
Mhm,
Like for a long time, my perspective is like I'm drawing to sort of like mitigate essentially being like unhappy or something, right? Like this is something that like helped me sort of disconnect or was more meditative, or like it there was like less turmoil when I was doing it, I guess. Um, and since it was internal, like, and like we know people, like I know people that like, when they were in high school and they were drawing and making stuff, like they had friends that'd be like, oh, draw something for me, or like, draw my Vans and I'll pay you money, or like, they know somebody that, they're making like band t-shirts or flyers or some, right? Like, I didn't really have a community like that. I was just doing it because I liked doing it. Um, so there was never really any question about like when it was like really hard, like why stop? That was, I never really thought about stopping. It was just because like, I don't know, what else was I going to do? Just like go get a normal job or something. I don't know. Like it was what I was passionate about. So it just made sense to like keep feeding it as much as possible. And like art center was like the only place that I knew like that, like if there's a pyramid, it was the top of the pyramid essentially that like I had access to. So it was kind of like just, you know, like one of the hardest things about like getting work and stuff is like getting your foot in the door. And it was like I just wedged my foot in the door and like
mhm,
no matter how hard it hurt, I just like kept it in there type of thing. Because for sure those years in the van were like the darkest years I like have ever had and probably will ever had like or have
mhm,
like it like for sure it like rewired my brain, like my understanding of like of everything. But
Wow.
yeah, I think like in general though, like art has made me more empathetic. Like when I started taking art history classes, I was more curious about other people or other cultures or other perspectives. Like there's very little art that I look at now and sort of like am dismissive of. Like
mhm.
usually stuff that's like poop. Like any paintings with poop, I'm not really that into. But like, you know, like it's just interesting to see other people's perspectives and try and like learn from it. And sometimes it's like somebody's trying to approach something different, but sometimes it's like cultural. And yeah, like I became a much better like listener like through art.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are like incredibly empathetic, and you actually like I feel like you're really good at fostering a
Mm,
community.
yeah.
Like, and that is like one of the questions I was thinking about too and wanted to ask you, like
Mm,
how you said you didn't have that type of art community when you
yeah.
were younger. Like how important is it to you, like now, or even
Mm,
like looking back at your journey to art school, because you're
yeah.
super supportive
Yeah.
of like everyone. Like you're one of the person who always like, you're the first one to champion like other friends works, and
Mm,
whether it's a big achievement or just like a cool casual thing on the side, like
mm,
you're definitely one of the first person that's always, you know sharing and spreading the joy of it
yeah.
all.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like it's just like you want to support the homies, and like we know a lot of like really talented people, incredible people that just make cool shit.
Mhm,
And like so it just makes sense to me to like yeah, support. Um I think community is something that's like kind of hard because like I am an introvert. And like even now where I'm at in San Diego, like I don't have really much of a community. There's a couple art center people there that we try and hang out and like stay connected. Um, But like I mean, even when I was a kid, like, I'm a millennial, but I grew up a lot on the internet. And
Mhm.
so like a lot of my community was not necessarily like an in-person community, it was like an internet community. And that's still like in some cases, the way it is today. One of the things I miss about living in LA is like, all the friends and all the homies. And like we've had some like get-togethers recently, for people who are moving away, that like it was really awesome to see all these people, because it's so rare now to have like so many people all in one room, and that's what for me was so valuable about Art Center, is like having like all these creatives in one place. Like, I mean, any school, right? Like SVA or, wherever, SCAD or something, it's the same thing. It's like having all these people that are committed to this thing that they love, and that creative energy just flowing. Um, and then like you come out of it with a community to a certain extent, right? Um, so I don't know. It's just like, to me, it's like, looking out for the homies and protecting each other. And just like, we need more cool shit in the world. I don't know. Like yeah, it just seems natural to just like hype each other up.
Yeah. I mean, I just want to point out, like, you're
Yeah.
always very generous with that. And
Mm,
it's totally understandable if, you know,
yeah.
if some, because everyone's busy with life, and
Yeah.
like it's totally, you don't have to go to every event and whatnot. But I
Mm.
always, when I'm on Instagram, I'm like, oh, John's there. Oh, John's there. Like, or John's sharing
Yeah.
this, or like he knows that this is happening. Whereas
Yeah.
I'm like finding it out,
Yeah.
a week later or
Yeah.
something. So,
Yeah. I don't know. It's like, that's one of the things that's great about LA, right? Is like all that
hmm
stuff is happening. And it's cool to go out and like see people and just like be supportive. That's something that's like sort of missing in San Diego, is they don't have the same kind of like gallery scene.
yeah, but I just want to point out that you're still living in San Diego and you
Yeah.
drive up to LA for like
Yeah.
gallery openings or like like shows with friends and stuff.
Yeah.
That's a 2-hour drive with,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
even with no
2 to 3
traffic. Yeah,
depends on the
exactly.
traffic. It's
So
like, yeah, it's like 1.5 hours at night.
yeah, so exactly. You hear I
Yeah.
hear about, when I have friends or people visit from New York, and
Yeah.
I'll drive like 40 minutes to meet up with them if they're in a certain part of town
Hmm.
that it's not, easy for me to get to. And they're like, oh
Yeah.
my God, thank you for driving 40 minutes. And I'm just like, 40 minutes is nothing.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about John driving from San Diego to support and just be
Yeah.
here for
Yeah.
like 2-3 hours. Like, come
Yeah.
on.
I'll never complain about driving from the South Bay again.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's just like, how often do you get to see people in person, um and it's fun, like
Hmm.
I had a rap party like yesterday, and I drove up for that, just to see like, coworkers or whatever. um and so like, yeah, it doesn't happen. We're not all in the same space like that all the
Yeah.
time. So it's like really special, and like especially because, like LA's huge, and like people live in different parts of LA if they're even still in LA.
Hmm.
So like if I know like that they're gonna be at a gallery, like that I can just see a bunch of homies, like that's worth it to me. Like the relationships and that energy is like worth it to me,
Me too.
you know?
Um, my wife Mo will be like, "Oh man, you're driving all the way." I don't think about it. Like I'm
Hmm.
like, I
Yeah.
think, I think the end result of you getting to spend time with people you
Yeah.
love and care about is like worth driving wherever.
Yeah. Yeah, we went to Vegas to see
Yeah, that
Truly's
was so
show.
sick. Yeah, yeah. John
And
and
that was a crazy trip, but it was like, yeah.
John and I also both flew to Japan and hung out. Like not for each other, but we
Yeah.
did we did make time for each
That was
other.
cool.
It was so sick to just be
Yeah.
across the world and like hanging out.
Yeah, it was really special
Yeah.
because like it feels like so rare for something like that to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like you're always gonna look back at those memories and
Yeah.
appreciate that you did make the drive.
Yeah, it was fun.
Got on that flight.
Yeah.
What about your post grad life? Like how has it been since you finished
Yeah.
that long journey?
Well, it was crazy because, like, yeah, so it took me 8 years and then like 6 years of homelessness. And then I graduated. I went to London. So, one of the things I always wanted to do, when I started college, I was always on the eye out, looking out for, was like a study away program type thing. I was, I had a real romantic idea about it. Um, and so my final term was like I did London, and then the term ends, and then you fly out there for like 14 days, I think it was. But my semester was weird. They decided to push graduation a week, and so like I didn't walk that term. And I had talked to like, the graduating classes that we got to take and the teachers, and they're like, okay, well, you can just do this stuff in the summer. So it's weird. Like technically I graduated like at the beginning of the year or whatever, April, but like I walked in summer. And so um I graduated quote unquote in August of 2019. 6 months later, we're in the pandemic, and like everything like shuts down. And I kind of struggled my final year at Art Center because, like, the thing about only taking one semester a year is like you're kind of like starting and stopping. You like don't
Hmm.
really have momentum, and like momentum is really valuable. It's hard to go straight through, but like when you're constantly building on top of what you've done the previous term, like you end up with like a ton of work. Um, of like sort of like a certain quality. Like for me, it was kind of like I'm in this class and then I stop, and like some stuff it was very difficult to return to with, if I didn't have access to the class, or I didn't have like the studio space, for that one semester. It was hard to do like big like oil paintings or anything like that if like I didn't have a space, like I don't really want to be like huffing oil fumes in my van, um, that's not very healthy. But like yeah, so I struggled with like having sort of like no momentum, and then also like application, which like some classes were like I remember having conversations with Rob Clayton about like application, like how to apply your art, and where you should put it. um but I had like uncertainty, in my final terms, and then the pandemic happened, and then everybody's entire lives was uncertain,
Did
which
you did you have an idea of like what would be like not not an ideal goal, but or an ideal job, but like what field or what industry you wanted to work
no.
in? No.
I mean, like, well, the other thing too is like since I was just doing it because I wanted to get better,
Mhm.
like having a job was never really part of the equation. I just kind of figured, like the old stories of Art Center, right? Is like you're good at painting, like Hollywood will hire you, right? Like, but that's not the case anymore. There are degrees for everything. Like get your degree in, 3D modeling and all that kind of stuff. So just being good it isn't like necessarily a foot in the door. But like, yeah, I liked painting. I took a lot of editorial classes, although I felt like I was always pretending to be an editorial illustrator. Um, but like my the painting was hard. Fine art seemed hard to like get into. Like sort of like the scene and
Mhm.
schmoozing, and
For
uh,
sure.
yeah, and I was sort of like um suspicious of some of it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
I don't think you would enjoy.
Yeah. It's like I loved painting. Like I took like one of the classes I loved the most at Arsenal was like wet paint, where it's like it's just a fine art class and all critique. There's like no direction. It's just like, like you paint what you want to paint, and then you sit here and like everybody talks about it. Um which help, like those classes help you in other disciplines too. Oftentimes other disciplines will be talking about the same thing, but they'll be using different words. But like, when I'm talking to like my art director, or having references, for like animation or something, like a bunch of those skills are things that I developed, like not in a necessarily an entertainment class, but like in a fine art class.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Being able to talk about your work and like also like dissect it, and like, cause like when you're on the job, right, everything starts from communication. And if you're having conversation with somebody and you can't like say what you want, or you can't like dissect what they're saying, that's where, you go through rounds of iterations and, miscommunication. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't really have a plan of like where to end up. When the pandemic happened, I kind of thought like, well, I know like we know people that were like illustration, like design, more editorial or whatever, that had transitioned to animation. And I was like, well, maybe I could do that. And then I could like work remotely. Um, and so I was like, I'll try that. And it went nowhere for like years, just sending like cold emails. But I one of the last classes I took at Art Center was character design, with Adam Dix, and I had seen Adam's work on Instagram. He had a lot more, like his life drawing had a lot more emotion than like my stuff did. And so that's kind of why I signed up for it. I was like, maybe I'll learn something cool that I could apply to life drawing. Maybe, like I'm not really planning to be a character designer, but like, maybe the class will be cool, be different. And like Adam basically started my career. Um, like that class, I was definitely like a fish out of water. Everybody was making stuff like dramatically different. Um, Maybe more of what like is expected in sort of like entertainment like world.
Yeah.
A lot of like
How
Disney
is
type
the
stuff.
how is the adapting to that style or that way
It was
of drawing?
hard. It
Because
was
it's a different way of thinking too,
yeah. I
especially if
mean,
you're really into art history and the old masters like you
yeah.
are.
Yeah, because like for me, like drawing, like obviously drawing people, I was often only interested in like really like likeness, um, or getting like a sense of weight to them, and so it was different to like in every drawing was like a new drawing was like um, instead of sort of like doing a turnaround of a character in which like it's essentially the same drawing, right? Like you want
Hmm.
everything to track all the way around. To me, like from illustration, it's like why would if you're drawing a portrait of somebody, like why would you make it the same as the one you already did, right?
Yeah.
You want more character or whatever, or more expression. So that was kind of like my frame of mind. But like even like when we would get the assignments and I would see other people's assignments, then there's some really incredible draftsmen in that class and made some really cool stuff. Um, but it was funny because I remember the assignment that I was the most excited about was like a 1 week assignment about designing Western characters. And like I did these drawings that felt more like a comic book, but it was like like one of the characters is like a black cowboy who like is like emancipated, and then he goes like west, right? Which and a lot of this stuff was based in obviously like real history. We had a ton of black cowboys, right? Another one was like
There was a sheriff, right?
yeah.
I
I
forgot
I
his
don't
name.
know. I don't really know any of the like iconic ones necessarily, like
Hmm.
their names, but there are historical examples of that for sure.
Hmm.
Um, and like part of it also had to deal with like the like boarding schools and like
Hmm.
native kids being like taken from their communities. And so I had like a native like family, like a little boy and his older sister, and like native women were like made slaves and stuff, and like I had this like former Mexican soldier who fought against like expanding US territory, and like and so that was really exciting for me. But like other people in that kind of class, they were like some of them were like, oh, we're gonna make it look like a fairy, or like we're like we want like a Tinkerbell looking kind of thing. um so it was different, um, but really interesting. And Adam was a great teacher and really empathetic, and like in some cases very different from many of our former instructors, who like sometimes like rigor was like the most important thing, but like for Adam it was really like connecting with the students. um, and during the pandemic he was working on a job, and he's like, we need people who can draw. It's like we need like who can draw like more academic or can draw like realistic proportions, because it's like a comic book project.
Mm.
And so he recommended me to the art director, and the art director like basically he looked at my portfolio and he's like, well, I'll give him a test. Like he wasn't very confident that I would be able to deliver, but like Adam got me the test, and the art director was another art center guy, Jonathan Hoekstra. And so they gave me the test, and I guess I did really well on the test because then they gave me freelance, and I think I was freelance for a month, and then they made me full time like employee, and I was on that gig for I think like 6 months, and it was Watchmen chapter 1 and 2, like an animated version of Watchmen, which was also crazy because it's one of the most famous comic books of all time, and they're like, we want you to make it look like Gibbons, you know, like make it look like, you know, one of the most iconic comic books of all time, and make it look like the characters, you know, which is not possible, but we tried.
For context, for everyone listening, like I cannot tell you how happy I was that this story had a fucking happy ending, because seeing you
Mm-hmm.
grind through school and then like the countless late night conversations you and I had
Mm,
about like where you fit in the world with your art,
yeah.
like you are you have like a wealth of talent that
Mm.
could be applied to anything. And I remember having these conversations with you that were so frustrating because I was like, man, if you just like applied yourself in any one of these directions, you would be so successful
Or
at.
like if
Mm.
anyone just like gave you a
Yeah, if you got
chance.
your foot in the door anywhere, like you would really thrive. And it like didn't
Mm.
happen for so long, even after
Yeah.
you graduated. So like it was such a victory lap when I still remember you telling me about like this test. Like it's
Yeah.
kind of cool to hear you tell all this
Mhm.
um like in order, because
Yeah.
like meeting up with you through life and seeing these little moments was like
Yeah.
pretty inspiring. But yeah, man, it was so sick when it finally happened, and like
Yeah.
it really like
Yeah.
it feels like a win for everyone when it happened.
Yeah, like that feeling of like nothing feels as satisfying as seeing like your friends like find success
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
and just seeing all their hard work pay off.
Yeah.
Like
for sure. But
it's
specifically
great.
John,
Well, yes,
like
for sure. Well, and
because we saw how
John
much
for
you
sure.
struggled.
And John has like, I
Yeah.
mean, you've taught me and you've influenced the way I've like approached like just like
Mm.
friends and how to support them and just
Yeah.
just all that blah 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 stuff. But yeah,
Yeah.
it was really truly
Well,
amazing.
it was
Yeah.
wild because, like, you know, like it, some people's path is like really linear. I met a guy at Art Center who, like, you know, like he got in, worked a couple semesters. I remember him coming into my studio and like looking at the paintings and just like chatting with him. I'd never met him before, but like he was an entertainment student, and like he applied to the internship he wanted. He got the internship he wanted. Like he worked with them. I think they extended him, and then like he never graduated because they just gave him the job that he wanted. And then he was at the company for like, I don't know, it was like a video game company. I think he was there for, I don't know, maybe like 8 years or something. We're not like in contact now, but like, you know, I see on social media, like, you know, he like has moved on and stuff, but like, that is some people's like journey. But then like some people, like, yeah, it's a winding path and you don't really know where you're going to end up. And I've certainly felt like that pretty much most of my life, is like the goal is to get better, like however that, you know, like manifests, I don't know. And like how I'm gonna get there, I don't really know either. I'm just gonna try and like make the best, you know, like genuine, like heart, like full of heart decision I can at the moment, you know. um and even the Watchmen thing, like the week before Watchmen, I basically had like a mental breakdown because I was like, I had been applying to jobs and like probably nobody was looking at them. Almost assuredly nobody was looking at them. And I was just like, all right, I guess I like go back to night stalking at like Lowe's, and like, you know, and then like essentially almost like giving up, like all, like I was like, I don't really know what's going to change. Right.
But you, even with those jobs, you were like, I remember not only were you failing to make like break ground with
Mm,
the art and design, but then even just looking into like a job at Costco, you're like,
yeah.
no one's even
Mhm.
hiring for this. So like
Yeah. Yeah.
it was like nonstop
Yeah. Yeah. I had a,
obstacles.
yeah. well, yeah. So then that Lowe's job, like, and then so like I was like, I had this like low moment, and then within a week, like like Adam had emailed me. He's like, hey, or he like texted me on Instagram. He's like, hey, like, what are you doing? Are you working now? And I'm like, no. I was like, no. And he was like, okay. He's like, yeah, like we need character designers for this, for this thing. And like I'll give him your information. And I was like, okay. He's like, look out for an email. And then like 2 days later, I get an email, and then they ask for a test, and I do the test. And like, so it was like within a week and a half, like I had a job after years of like, just like doing nothing, sending cold emails, to like animation or motion studios or, whoever. Um, and then like I finished that gig. And then like I ended up working at Albertsons, and it took me 6 months to get a job at Albertsons, like doing night stalking,
Crazy.
which is like,
Mhm.
and I had enough experience,
This
like,
was after the second job?
yeah,
Or
well, it was after Watchmen, yeah.
okay.
Because like we had a big gap because of like the
Yeah.
strikes and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
And so like I had unemployment, and when that ran out, I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll get a part time something that will allow me to like make art and also like pay something.
Man, but that's such a freaking mind fuck where you're like working on this
Yeah,
amazing gig and then suddenly
yeah. I was like, do I put it on the resume or whatever? Like,
Albertsons?
yeah,
Albertsons
no, well, like
or
even Watchmen,
Costco.
like, yeah, I was like character designer, like they don't care like
Mhm.
that,
Oh, for the
for like
Albertsons job.
Albertsons, And so like I remember when I quit Lowe's to do Watchmen, because I worked at Lowe's, I think, for like a couple months or a month or two. No, I think it was a month, actually. It was a month. But like I was working there and I hated it, and like and then the Watchmen thing happened, and I went in there, and like I was like, so I'm gonna quit. And they were like, oh no. And I was like, yeah. And they're like, you're going someplace better? I'm like, yeah. Yeah, oh no. Like, they're like, what can we do to keep? And I'm like, no, you can't match. So like, yeah. And then I was like on that for 6 months, right? And then a big break of time um at Albert, and then working at Albertsons until I got the second gig after that. So it was never like, character design was never a plan. It was like, I don't know. If anything, I thought I might do like background layouts or maybe background paint, because I did a bunch of oil painting and stuff. But yeah, character design was never a plan.
But
I
it's
don't
kind of
know.
a perfect fit because you're like so familiar with anatomy and
Yeah,
proportions, and like you're an excellent
yeah.
draftsman. So it's
It's
pretty dope.
worked out, I think, like in part because like so much of Hollywood is comic book stuff now. And so like, yeah, like if you're going to do comic book characters, you need people who can draw like, people. Um and so yeah, it made sense to me too, right? Especially cuz there was a moment not too long ago where adult animation was like seeming like it was popping up and coming back. Um and I was like, well, I feel like I would fit in more with that than necessarily like Pixar or Disney. Um and so like luckily, I mean, the two things I've worked on now are like adult animation, so I guess yeah, it works out. But like it's also um I agree, I feel comfortable in it to a certain extent, because like a lot of it is like doing turnarounds and tracking like like elements of the character, and like executing things that are really hard to do. Like I think when we were at Art Center, sometimes entertainment students weren't given a lot of credit, but a lot of that stuff is really really hard.
Hmm.
It's really hard, but that one entertainment class I took, I was like, I don't want to
What'd you take?
draw. I forget what's it called. It's the one that um the first class that you just draw that Will
Yeah,
Weston taught.
yeah.
Was that you draw a bunch of Stitch, you draw a bunch of Simba
Oh
heads, like
yeah.
hundreds of it, and I was just like I
Hmm.
mean they weren't turnarounds, but
Yeah,
I knew immediately that this wasn't for me.
yeah,
Like I'm not gonna draw none of fucking
yeah.
Stitch or Brown, like
Right.
that stupid little I mean, a lot of people use it. Sorry, but that stupid little ball with the little cross to
Yeah.
get the. I'm like,
Yeah.
I even if I do light figure drawing,
Mhm.
I never do that like
Yeah,
line
yeah.
in the middle and the cross. I'm like, I hate it so
Yeah.
much. I hate it
I remember
so
I took
much.
that class too, and I
Yeah.
remember I was TAing for Jason Holly, and while I was
Yeah.
TAing, I was working on the stitch heads,
Yeah.
and Jason just looks at me with like this knowing, like shit eating
Yeah.
grin, and he's just like, "How do you like that blue pencil?"
Yeah.
Oh my god, that
And
blue
I never
pencil.
went back.
Yeah.
I chucked
Jason,
that thing
yeah,
down
Jason's
the
great.
garbage disposal. I don't
Yeah.
know. I hated it.
Yeah, it's funny because, like, I mean, that certainly hasn't been my experience of like actually doing it.
Yeah, for
But
sure,
like,
it's definitely
like,
not.
yeah, it's funny. Like, I think like one of the things I always loved comic books. I grew up, reading comic books, and mostly I'm not really reading. I would mostly just buy the comics that had the artists that I like. Um, but like, I didn't want to be a comic book artist because I didn't want to have to stay on model all the time, right? And now that's like all I'm doing is like, doing turnaround characters, and then like, there are times where they want me to draw the animatic. And so that it looks like what the character should look like, right? Like they call them special poses, right? So if like a character, is like in the shows that we worked on, like characters like dead lying on the floor, it's like, okay, well, take the 3/4 front and back that you did and pose them so that animation.
Sorry, my mind just like drifted when you're talking about that. Just for a split
Sally is
second.
zoning out.
I'm like, what? Oh, right.
Yeah, but it's like that's staying on model too, because now
Yeah.
it's like, and it's not even like staying on model. Like it's like I'm providing the model, right?
Yeah.
It's like it's not even, like everybody knows what Spider-Man looks like, I guess. And like if you read Marvel comics, right, like panel to panel, like you don't really have to draw Spider-Man exactly right. You can be more expressive, like when he's swinging,
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. Um,
Well, do you
there's a lot more on model and
do you
animation.
enjoy now, or do you find a different type of like fulfillment from it?
It's interesting because it's kind of like this in between of like what I like to do and also like almost like what I'm willing to do, like
Yeah.
for work.
Still work.
Yeah, like there's like a level of separation in which like I find satisfaction in it, but like my identity isn't tied up in it, right?
Okay.
Like I if somebody was to ask me what I do, I'd say like I would say I could work in animation. I'm an illustrator. I'm working in animation, or like I'm a character designer. Like that's the position, but like I'm not, like I'm not walking around like I'm a character designer. Like this is my identity. Um, I still want to paint and make zines and all that stuff too.
Yeah.
So I think there's a good separation that keeps it enjoyable, but not like, oh no, if I lose this job, then I'll never be a whole person again. I don't know. Yeah. But I'm also, I mean, my art director asked me, he's like, what else do you like being a character designer? And I was like, yeah, and I still have room to grow. Um, like being somebody who didn't start in animation or entertainment, like there's still a lot of stuff that I'm like learning. And like once you leave school, like where do you learn? Right? Like oftentimes it's like you're either, learning on your own, or you're learning from maybe one person or a homie, or, maybe if you're like in fine art, like maybe you're assisting somebody. But it's hard to learn sort of like once you leave school to a certain extent, because like um if you're dependent on your environment to learn, like I learn much better from like a person. And so like that's another opportunity of like doing the job, is like I'm still learning a lot. So and I really appreciate that part too. But like he asked me, he was like, do you like it? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, would you be interested in doing anything else? And I was like, yeah, I would love to try doing like background layouts and paint and all that stuff too. So
Would you ever like want to tell or create your own story?
yeah, I mean, like,
I mean, that's a much
yeah,
bigger,
I think to a certain extent, I know like me and AJ have talked about like essentially putting like my story in like a comic book,
Mhm.
obviously, like, you know, AJ
I think
put
you'd be
his
great at it.
life. Yeah.
Or
No,
it
I
is
mean,
like,
like AJ
okay.
put a huge part of his life into a comic book,
Uh-huh.
right? So like, and I've thought about it too. I don't have necessarily like a vision for it, right? It would be like I would have to start it and like figure it out.
Hmm.
Um, I think right now, um, because there's always a question of like, oh, do you want to be a director or do you want to, you want to get into animatics and animatics is or storyboarding. I mean, storyboarding is closer to like directing and all that kind of stuff. Um, I don't know. I think like possibly, but I don't have. It's not on like my to do list right now.
Yeah, I just asked that because I mean both AJ and I talked about this, but you're so like involved in social issues,
Mm,
and you're very passionate about it. And even when you
mm,
were talking about that one character design class, like
yeah.
what sparked your interest was when you delve more into these stories of
Mm,
like injustices and of
yeah.
other like um underdogs or minorities or people who are
Mm,
just you know fighting for their ways and stuff. So like I was just
yeah.
yeah, I was just curious because I feel like that is something you're very passionate about and advocating for
Yeah.
the equalities of others.
Yeah.
And I feel like you would be really good in translating those stories
Yeah.
in some way. It doesn't have to be comic books.
Right. Right.
It doesn't have to be, like as big of a project as directing a
Yeah.
show or something. But I feel like, yeah, you'd be really good at that.
Yeah. I think like that idea was an idea that like I did really like and got really into. Um, I think one of the things I always really enjoyed was also like sort of like journalistic illustration.
Mm,
Like me. There's a lot of similarities between me and like Chewie's story, but like I really loved like the drawings that Chewie does and going to the shows. And I did a series. One class, I did a series of paintings from like protests
mm,
down at like City Hall and stuff. Um, and that's something that I've always like appreciated. I and I still have um I still want to do that stuff. I just haven't figured out the vehicle yet. I think it might be closer to painting and doing paintings off like maybe off of history
mm,
rather than like yeah, maybe making a comic book or something else. Um I was having a conversation the other day when I went to the our rap party with a coworker, and I realized we were talking about like cinematography, and I sort of realized that like for me, I'm really I think in essentially in still images. Like I don't really think in like motion, and that's one of the reasons why storyboarding hasn't really been all that appealing to me. And so like um I mean comic books are like little still images, right? But like I think yeah, paintings is something that I really want to get back into. Um and because I don't have like a defined sort of like necessarily goal or like look to my paintings, like it feels more open and exploratory, right? Like I haven't decided like what my like when you work on a TV show, like the character design and stuff, like the look of the characters, that's all figured out, right?
mm-hmm.
So you're designing within a set of parameters, whereas like now outside of that, I'm free to explore whatever I want to, and that feels closer to what I went to school for, or like what I've been doing my whole life is like just making for making, you
Yeah.
know?
I don't think there's a deadline for that. I mean
Yeah.
that's the great thing too. You're just exploring and
Hmm.
living life and trying to,
Yeah.
you know, do this completely separate thing that's
Yeah.
fulfilling for yourself.
That perfectly
Yeah.
coincides with your life right now because you have the time to do it.
Yeah.
You got a lot
Yeah.
of time to do
Newly unemployed.
it.
Yeah. And I'm lucky because I'm gonna be able to like see a bunch of friends and travel a bunch. And so like that's part of the goal too, is just like make some stuff,
do
that is
you
like low stakes and that's just for fun.
does do you still have that same anxiety now? after like a finishing a gig, or are you just kind of used to it now?
I don't know. I think like I mean my pretty much my entire adult life has been like uncertainty or like instability. So like I'm kind of comfortable with it.
Mm.
Like fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know. But like, you know, like when the pandemic happened, everybody's like, "No, I'm stuck inside. I don't get to see people." Like, you know, everything's going to shit. Like, I was like, "Oh, I've already been here for the past like 6 years." You know, so like you know, like I have coworkers now who are like, I don't know what, you know, like they're stressing about, you know, the next 6 months to a year, right? Um, and I'm just kind of like, well, I know I'm going to be unemployed, so I'm going to go travel and see my friends.
Take some
You know,
awesome photos.
yeah. Um, like if there is a silver lining to it, it's like that's what it is. So I'm just going to do it. You know.
Nice. On
Yeah.
this trip, you'll be bringing your camera.
Yeah. Yeah.
And on Plain Air, we like to talk about non-studio
Uh huh.
Mhm.
practices, and like photography is huge for you.
Yeah.
Like you're an I would say well accomplished photographer. I think
I
you're
would not say that.
I would. I think
Yeah, I
your
think you're
shit
being
is
too
so
generous.
sick.
You have such
And-
a wealth of
No.
knowledge.
Yeah.
I'm just a white guy who went to Japan once and came back with the same photos that everybody else took.
That's not true at
Yeah.
all. But like, tell us about your passion for photography. Like, what?
Yeah.
Where
Yeah,
does it?
It ties in with your what you said earlier too about how you think in still images, like the
Yeah.
power of just like a still image.
Yeah. It was something. So like, I have a friend like I've known since elementary school, and when we were growing up, I was drawing, and he got really into photography, and he became a photojournalist for a local paper, and then did product photography for that clothing company that he got me a job at. Um, and so I was always like, because of him, like around photography, but I kind of like put it on the side, right? I took one class at Art Center, like a beginning photo class, and really enjoyed doing like darkroom stuff. Um, but it was really kind of like the first animation gig um, was like pretty stressful because there was a lot of like I was in a new environment with a new set of rules, like, and communicating with people like that I also didn't know the rules of, right? So there was a lot of anxiety built around it, and like I wasn't really enjoying drawing like on my own during that time. I came out like kind of burnt out. But like the thing that I really enjoyed was like I got into photography, and so that kind of like that became like another creative practice and like another creative outlet um to like put all that energy in that was like not available to drawing at the time. And I think like I don't know, to me it makes sense for a lot of creatives that like if your job is painting, that like you would have, you know, like or your business is painting, that you would have maybe like a creative outlet that is just for you. I think to me it makes sense and this sounds healthy. So the photography stuff is just like just for fun and playing around and just, you know, also learning something new, you know, um, being able to like get excited about a new thing. Um, yeah, and then we'll see. I don't have any goal with it. I'm not trying to become a magnum photographer or anything, but yeah, it's just fun, and you know, maybe it'll make it into a zine sometime or something, but um, yeah, I don't know.
It's so important to have those things that you don't try to extract anything from other
Yeah,
than pleasure and fun.
yeah,
Like it's really good to have that
yeah,
and not sully it with money or something. Like, it just makes
yeah.
it takes away the joy.
It's like the
Yeah.
craft and the art of making is like the reason for it, not like selling it,
Yeah.
you know?
Funny enough, like photography is like the one thing that like I do on the side for fun where because when I was drawing as a kid, people would be like,
Mm.
"Oh, you should do that to make some money
Yeah.
for that," or in the future you could do those kind of jobs. But
Yeah.
photography, for some reason, no one puts that pressure on me. I don't know what that says about my photos, but
No, I'm also sitting in a room with accomplished photographers.
no,
What
man.
the fuck?
The hell? What the fuck? This
Yeah.
is more of like a, what is it? Photo club?
Yeah, photo
Yeah.
club.
Photo
Yeah,
club? Yeah.
Fuji fanboy club.
Yeah.
Yeah, Fuji fan club. We're all bought in.
Yeah.
But it's sick. Like we are in a group chat together, and I love how in depth you are with
Yeah.
what you, like Sally said earlier, like the things that you're passionate about, you really take the time to explore and learn about and expand your knowledge on.
Yeah.
I'm very generous with sharing.
Yeah, totally.
All the
You're not
information.
gatekeeping anything.
Like
Yeah.
I'll ask like a very casual question, like, "Oh, I want to replicate this look," and
Yeah.
then John will send me like all these suggestions, and it's like I researched and I saw that this film they used these like films back then, and especially for like Hong Kong in the 90s. So you could try using this
Yeah,
and
totally.
this and this. I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa, that's super helpful. Thanks.
Well, to be fair, I just found somebody else who did all that research.
Yeah, but you
But
know,
still,
Yeah.
it takes time to look for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's also part of the fun is just like, to some extent, like gold digging and trying to find like that little nugget that you're after. And like, I don't know. The same thing happens where like anytime I see like a new mechanical pencil, I'm like, oh, this one looks cool. Like, will I use it? Will it replace the one I have now? Like, probably not. But I don't know. It's fun. Or like a new paper. Or,
a new book.
yeah.
But you will buy the book. That's the
Yeah.
thing.
Oh,
You
oh.
will buy a book.
We
Yeah.
gotta talk about your book collection.
Yeah.
It's second to Lisa Kogawa's collection, but you have a lot of sick books.
I don't. Lisa has. I
Well,
think she's
Lisa is
got
very specific.
She beats everybody. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, dude, you have such a sick collection. I remember just even when we were at Art Center,
Mm.
we would just be looking at books. You would always get like, if someone was exhibiting in a museum or if you went to a gallery show, you would always get the exhibition catalog or like just a collection of work.
Yeah.
It's just so fun to comb through all that stuff with you.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't really collect much anymore. Like, one of the things about like
that was
my-
a lot of books I saw.
I know. I don't know what you're talking about. You literally showed us brand new books that you
I
bought.
don't know,
Like,
is it a lot? I don't
opening up new boxes that was just delivered.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like when I was younger, I had more stuff, and like, and we had like I said, I grew up in suburbia. And we had a 2-story, like 3-bedroom house, right? And like over the years, like even like when I was homeless and stuff, my mom was also going through it at the time, right? So there were periods where like I just dumped a ton of just stuff, right? Like all like I think anything from like 5th term and below is just gone from Art Center. Like a ton of my old artwork, stuff from like when I was like a child, like all that stuff got like thrown away, because we were moved. We like my mom, she went through a bankruptcy. We lost our childhood home in the '08, like, financial collapse or whatever. And like, I think we lived there for like 10 years or something. You accumulate a lot of stuff. And so like, progressively I guess not really progressively, but like things have gotten worse, like where like the homes that we've lived in have just like gotten smaller and smaller and all that kind of stuff. There's a time where my mom was like renting a room from her friend, and I would like sleep in the closet on the floor. So like I've shed a lot of things, but like in the case of books, like they're one of the things that I love books, right? Like the actual book, the physical object of the book, but then also having like all the artwork in there and all that knowledge in there. And to me, it makes sense. Like it's worth collecting to have all that and like have a physical copy of it. And like a lot of times, like or like little zines, and some of that stuff isn't like on social media. Like art isn't really made to just like look at on a screen. Certainly not like fine art and all that kind of stuff. So like, I don't know. I love it, and I probably spent too much money on it, but
no, I agree. I completely agree.
There's definitely been a resurgence in the importance of like a physical archive, because I see people like there's certain movies they want to watch that is only available on VHS or something.
Yeah.
There's certain CDs or records that are not on Spotify or Apple Music, and people just see the importance of owning things because a movie you love will just be snatched away from Amazon Prime
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah, or because like if you buy it on iTunes, you don't actually own it. You're just licensing it or whatever.
Sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and a book has like so much more thought put into it, like the
mhm.
feel of it, how light reflects off of it,
Yeah.
and just like you can't replicate that through a
Yeah.
screen and everything. So
Yeah, there's like some stuff too that is like hard to find. Just like one of the like the internet is like a crazy place, but like I follow this animation account that just digs up stuff from like decades ago from the early like times of the internet that like if you typed it into Google you wouldn't find it, right?
mm,
Like the SEO and how they find stuff like there's a ton of stuff on there that is just like lurking in the shadows of like really valuable information. And it's like the same thing with books too, where like, I have a book on like graffiti hand styles and like, where are you going to really find that? Like, if not in that like one book, right? Cause like, especially like graffiti culture is so like word of mouth and like, the community or whoever you're surrounded by, like the time that there's like a book that is like giving you the hand styles of famous like graffiti artists from across the US, it's like by like region, it's like pretty crazy.
yeah.
Super
Um,
valuable.
And I don't know if you guys noticed, but I, s- Google searches is like not as good anymore too.
no,
Especially,
Sucks.
I don't know if that has something to do with like AI and anything,
yeah,
but
or
there's a
making
lot more
money.
AI images that pops up. But just like
Hmm.
it doesn't feel as far reaching as
Yeah,
before.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
yeah, buy more books, guys.
yeah, and zines, buy more zines.
More zines, more
Yeah,
books. Go to book fairs.
yeah, go to
Yeah.
LA Zine Fest and
Hmm.
San Diego Zine Fest. They have one there.
Nice.
Yeah, there's cool stuff there that you won't find anywhere else. So,
All right, John. It's been amazing so far.
mm,
We do something on the show where we just ask like super fun questions.
yeah,
Are they super fun, Sally?
I think they're fun. I mean, I think they're fun for me to listen to. I don't know about other people, but I never really
yeah.
cared.
All right, we'll start with a fun one.
Sorry.
Mm.
What are the 3 best ska bands to draw to?
Oh no. Yeah, ska was like kind of like my first like like music genre that I really identified with.
Yeah.
So like my favorite ska band of all time is the Slackers. They're out of New York, and they go in between like rocksteady and dub and even some like more garage band kind of like indie things, and they've been around for forever. So like they're like my number one. Um, and then it's hard to it's outside of that. Well, I don't know, like Sublime. I don't know if people really consider them ska, but they obviously have ska influences. But they were huge on me in high school. But the bands that like got me into ska was like Real Big Fish and Mighty Mighty Boss Tones. I remember hearing them on the radio, like 91X in San Diego, which is like San Diego local station, right, independent station, and being like, "Who's that?" And like this was like like Napster era, so like I would go on like Napster and look up like ska compilation albums and like then just listen to every single one and then try and find more of the ones I liked, Um,
Dang, how would you even go
yeah,
back and find like was it listed in the comp of what song was who, or was it just
yeah,
okay?
yeah. Because it was like because they were ripped CDs,
Oh, I
right?
see, I see.
So
So
like
it's track
yeah,
listings.
so there would be track listings and stuff. So like that, and then I would just try and find whatever else I could, which sometimes was like nothing, right? Like maybe you could find one album or something, or you could find it but you couldn't buy it, or it wasn't uploaded anywhere like on Napster or something. But those are kind of like the OGs, but like definitely like the Slackers. Um, yeah, I think now one of my favorite bands is the Interrupters.
Nice.
Um, so like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that answered your question.
It did. But like just a side note, like compilations were sick.
Yeah.
I don't know like the importance of a compilation and exposing you to other bands that those bands liked, and
Yeah.
like expanding your knowledge of a certain scene. They're pretty
Yeah.
I'm
invaluable.
having like flashbacks of
Chewy's.
well, not Chewy's, but just like when I was younger, just like friends passing off like burned
Yeah.
CD
Oh, yeah,
mixes,
totally.
Yeah.
and it's like I'll know like one or two bands on it, but
Yeah.
then everything else is like, oh, who's this? Who's that?
Yeah.
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the best shows I ever went to was Boss Tones. Like I saw them in Anaheim. They were like starting to tour again, and the crowd was so packed that like you couldn't put your elbows down
Dang.
because you'd be like in somebody's rib. And then like they came out, started playing, and then the crowd like just moved as like one wave.
You can't control your body at that point.
Wait, I have a
Yeah.
question. What is ska?
Yeah.
What is ska? Because in my head, I hear it all the time, and I hear
Yeah.
AJ mention it, but
We should
like my visual image of it is a crow going.
Oh,
So I just
that's kinda
never,
cool.
I've just never looked it up because I
That's-
just like the idea. It's
That's
a
pretty cool
crow.
idea. I like that idea.
My visual image
Yeah.
is like fedoras and sunglasses
Yeah.
and checkered suspenders.
Oh,
and
really?
high-rise pants.
Okay.
And trumpets.
We should pull up that like Simpsons episode where they put ska on it.
So I should listen to those bands that you just mentioned to
you,
better
you've,
understand
you've
you.
heard well, like you've heard some of them for sure.
Okay.
I mean, like the Madness is like a huge like English ska band.
The Special.
The Specials.
Uh,
They're like
I wouldn't underestimate my lack of knowledge in media in general or popular music.
It all has roots in like reggae, so like it
Okay.
all kind of starts there.
I'm
Well, it's
sure.
actually
I'm
the
sure there's
opposite.
something that.
Oh, is
I'll,
it the opposite?
Yeah, ska
Oh.
came first.
Oh
Actually.
shit!
Yeah,
I'm sure there's something that like I'll recognize if I hear it
Yeah,
as something.
yeah. I mean, it's very close to reggae though. Like ska. I mean, it was like dance music and from
Oh.
Jamaica, and obviously like all that like reggae and ska came out of Jamaica after like being free from England or whatever,
Okay.
and like became their cultural identity. And like rocksteady is also like part of that. Like dance hall is also part of that. Yeah, it's like it was really interesting in high school when I got into it because like it was something that couldn't have happened without the internet. Really, like
Mhm.
San Diego has a crazy music scene, but like I was listening to like bands like roots, ska, and reggae like from Jamaica. I've never been to Jamaica. I don't like really know anybody who's Jamaican, so like it was kind of crazy, but I just really fell in love with it at the time.
It's a cool genre in that, like, like probably one of the first that I was exposed to that showed people appreciating someone else's culture
Yeah.
and like honoring it and how they play the music. So like from ska, reggae, dub, all that stuff you're talking about.
Yeah.
Like, that's why you see like white dudes with Rasta hats on. And, like,
is that why? Okay.
I mean, not.
Well, like, yeah. It got exported to England, so
Yeah.
there's root like if you talk about
Rude
reggae,
Boys, yeah.
If you talk about reggae, there's like roots sort of reggae and ska and stuff that is like the first sort of wave of like Jamaicans making that stuff, and then it got exported to England, and that's where you get like the two-tone era and like Rude Boys, and it was like working class English people that took it up. And then there's a third wave, which is like essentially when it landed in America, and then it fused more with like punk, and you get bands like Rancid has like some like ska type songs,
Bad
or like
Brains.
yeah, like Cash 22 was one of my favorite like albums when I was in high school, and still is like a really different version, but like of ska compared to like many other people. But yeah, like, and now who knows? I don't know what the fourth wave is going to be or whatever. I'm a little tapped out on it from here on out, but
Sidebar.
yeah.
I asked Ann Field's husband, Clive.
Oh yeah.
And he grew up in like the 70s in England, and
Yeah.
we were talking about punk.
Yeah.
He has a photo book called No Vacancy, which is like a Sex Pistols song.
Yeah.
We're just talking about that era of music, and I was like, oh, you were there like for it. He's like, yeah, but I was more of a rude boy. It was sick. Like he was into ska and stuff.
Yeah.
I thought he'd be a punk.
Yeah.
He'd be like singing along with Johnny Rotten and shit.
Yeah. Yeah, it was crazy. Like what's his name? The fashion designer that saw in London. Do you remember his name? Paul
Paul.
Smith. Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
remember talking to him because he had photos of the Clash,
Yeah,
and he
Oh.
like knew the Clash,
yeah.
and I
It's
was
definitely
like,
his era.
and I just wanted to ask him about Joe Strummer.
Yeah.
But like, it's like, all right, let's all sit down and talk about our work.
I know, yeah. Why is he
You
listening
would
to us talk?
probably make a better, strong connection with him
Yeah.
talking about the Clash than
Yeah.
talking about your own work, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, it would have been cool. Because I mean, Clash was another huge band.
Yeah, he would have been
band we-
texting you like, "Hey, John."
yeah.
Also, I want to talk about this.
Yeah. Op Ivy, another big band.
Oh, Up
Mhm.
Yeah.
Ivy's so sick. All
Yeah.
right, we can go on and on, but
Uh-huh.
Sally, take it away.
Um, let's see. Oh, let's continue down the list. Like, since like so much about art histories
Mm.
and you have so much knowledge, like, what are 3 painters that you think people should know about? Or
Oh. Yeah. I'll say like one of my favorite painters is Joaquin Sorolla.
Mhm.
He's not too like we, like Sargent, John Senior Sargent was super popular at
Mhm.
Art Center, and
Yeah.
everybody, and Sorolla's not that far away from him. He's a little bit more expressive, but one of the things I really loved about the first time I saw his work was that it felt like San Diego to me, like that huge
Mm,
Spanish influence.
yeah.
Nice.
And like sort of architecture and the light and everything, and San Diego's known for like well, kind of known for its beaches, or at least having a bunch of beaches. Um,
Yeah, so his first paintings I saw were like the beach paintings,
yeah,
and they were really beautiful. I
yeah,
I like him more than Sargent, but
yeah.
that's personal preference.
Yeah, and I was lucky when I went to London that they had a big exhibition of his stuff, and like they're large paintings, a bunch of those like beach paintings and stuff. They're big paintings, and they're so much more impressive, like at scale, like when you're standing in front of them, and the figures are like pretty much life size.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. Beyond that, now that I'm on the spot, um, I don't know. I want to say I was actually at the Norton Simon the other day. They have a really beautiful Degas there of like a woman who's like she's like washing the sheet. I can't remember what they call it. Like she's like a sheet washer or whatever. Um, and it's like a tiny little painting, but it's one of my favorite paintings that he's ever done. Um, but like Degas, he's pretty. Lots of people probably say Degas. Um, I don't know. I think like. Yeah, I can't think of anybody else now.
It could be contemporary. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be.
I was gonna say like yeah, I mean Kerry James Marshall is another great one.
Nice.
Um I wanna say it's funny, I wanna say Agnes Martin, even though like
No, no. Sorry. Continue.
even though
I'm
like
agreeing.
yeah, even though I don't paint like her or anything like that. But like I don't know. She is. I'm reminded of an instance where like LACMA had a show with like Guillermo del Toro's like collection, right? And I had friends in San Diego who were like, "Oh, we want to go see like his stuff at the museum," and I was like, "Okay," and they were like, "Come, like give us a tour of the museum." Um, and we got there at the museum, and they were taking timed tickets, right? So we had to wait. We had to kill a couple hours, and they had an Agnes Martin retrospective at the time. And we walked through it, and they were like, "This just looks like graph paper and like Excel spreadsheets." And they sort of didn't get it, but like I don't know, like the certain level of like humanity in it was like really appealing to me. Um,
I think with her pieces, and I mean, this goes back to how like you can't just look at art through a screen,
yeah.
or even honestly, even if it's printed, I see her work, and
Hmm.
it's like, oh, that's pleasant.
Yeah.
But then when you see it exhibited
Yeah.
under like in gallery light in a certain setting,
Yeah.
like it's a completely different. feeling. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's no feeling when I just see it on a screen or on a book, but in life, like in
Right.
person, the emotions are there, which is
Yeah.
like crazy. But
Yeah.
sorry, continue.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like some of her work was like there's something to be said about like, for an everyday person, they look at it, they might say like, oh, it's an Excel spreadsheet. And that somehow that's like dismissive, or they use a dismissive tone. But like that's also like you're connecting to it too, right? Like if if your whole life is Excel spreadsheets, like, and then you see artwork and that you're like, oh, this reminds me of Excel spreadsheet, like that, like so much of art is common people think is inaccessible, and that's what makes it valuable, right? Like if you see something and you don't understand it, then it's like, oh, that's what like art is. It's not supposed to be something that like just I guess anybody can enjoy to a certain extent, or they just use it to criticize it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have bought into the idea, or I mean, they were taught the idea that art should be should only be representational.
Hmm.
So, like, I mean, I see a lot of like online hate or people who don't understand Cy Twombly,
Yeah, yeah,
and they'll be like, my 5-year-old can scribble this and stuff, but
yeah.
it's like it's so different when I
Hmm.
mean, I'm not saying every piece he does is amazing, but
Yeah,
like when it hits, it's like
yeah,
whoa, like
yeah,
it's insane. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I think like I don't know. It's hard because like some of the most impactful stuff actually hasn't been like paintings. I one of the most impactful paintings I ever saw was like the Rembrandt self portrait at the Norton Simon, and that was like when I was in high school, or not high school, when I was in community college. We had an assignment in art history to go to a museum, and he gave us a list, and I was like, well, I've been to all the museums here, in San Diego. I'll go to LA and I'll go to this Norton Simon one. And I still think that's one of the best Rembrandts, that self portraits that exist.
Wow.
Um, and that they also have that Degas there, and a bunch
hmm
of other Degas. But like, um, like other stuff that isn't just a painting is like LACMA had Edward Keenholz's like 5-car stud, and like I remember reading about it, and they were like, "Oh, this piece of artwork has been hidden for like 20 years, basically in storage, and like it's going to be at LACMA for like the first time, since it was shown at like I don't know, like like Venice or something, or at some Biennale somewhere or whatever." Um, and so I was like, "Oh, I'll go see it." Like, don't really know what it is, and it was like one of the most impactful pieces of artwork that I've ever seen in my life. Um, and like even James Turrell stuff, like those are experiential,
yeah,
and
you have to
like
experience it
yeah,
because it's so easily like you can easily dismiss it,
yeah,
and then once you're there, you're like pretty cool.
yeah, yeah. Like even sometimes when it's like some of them feel more like, I guess, like sort of like public facing, or
Yeah, like a theme park a little bit.
yeah, like some of them feel like that, or maybe it's like sort of like the like how the museums sell it and stuff.
hmm
But like like man, I want to go to that crater when he opens it, like, and all those like sky, like whatever they call them, the sky boxes where you look at the night sky and all that stuff, are just like incredible.
I
And like
remember, I think this was at LACMA, like they had the Richard Serra pieces, the
yeah,
giant
yeah,
one. So like if I had just gone and approached it, I think I would have been like,
mm,
oh, it's cool, but whatever. But
yeah,
we had someone who was like, I think this was in high school. There was a professor
yeah,
or a guide, and she led us like on a walk path, like
mm,
into like to truly like kind of enjoy and experience the space of
yeah,
like there was a specific way to kind of that was
mm,
intended, I guess. I
yeah,
don't know. But
yeah,
I remember like it was like a quiet little journey walking around those
mm,
pieces of sheets of
yeah,
metal or whatever it's made of, and
yeah.
it totally sold it for me. Like it's there are, I know, like you should experience it however you like, but there are certain like intentions by the
Yeah.
artists.
Yeah.
I think. I mean, I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
people would be like that's bullshit or whatever, but the context matters. The
Right.
environment matters for sure.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like, I definitely remember seeing those for the first time and like sort of like walking through them and just being like in awe
Yeah.
of like standing there, you know. Um, I think like, and I've seen the ones at LACMA, and I've seen a couple in some other places, and they're still always like pretty amazing. And they often feel like something out of like science fiction or something
Mm-hmm.
like, but then still are like also human and of our like industrial, like, not revolution, but like in, like they're made with like real ship, like steel or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like it speaks to like, I guess, American industry, or well, maybe not American. I don't know where they actually make them, but industry in general. But
It's been a while. Yeah. Time to
yeah.
revisit it.
Yeah.
AJ, you want to end it on
Yeah,
one question,
we
one
have
final
we
question?
have one question for you, and
Mm,
I think your experience can probably give more weight to your answer than if anyone else answered this question. But if if someone came to you and was like struggling through their artistic career,
mm,
um, they find themselves doubting themselves or something, like what would you tell them?
mm. Yeah. I mean, like, are we talking like high school kid, or are we talking like friends as we sit there and
Let's
commiserate?
just say, like, let's say it's someone you don't know, like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
a youth, like
A
it's
youth.
a
Yeah.
youth,
A youth,
a
like
youth.
a college student, or
Yeah.
Yeah, like a young person.
okay.
Yeah.
I would say yeah, let's extend it to
Yeah.
a young adult because I feel like
Yeah.
sometimes they get left behind.
Yeah. I mean, I think like, because sometimes, like, oftentimes, like, we're talking about like sort of like industry or like the business of it. And that's totally different from somebody who's just like just chasing the passion, right? And so what's hard is like, what part of it are you like dissatisfied with, or what part is like the struggle? If like the motivation is the struggle, like, um it's different than like, oh, I need a job, you know. um my advice would just basically, like, a lot of it is just like fostering it, and like, letting people, like, what's the biggest complaint a lot of our friends have, or struggle our friends have, is that, like, they loved art, they wanted to be artists, but like they felt like they couldn't, you know. And so, like, yeah, it's just like fostering it and being like, show me what you are interested in, show me what you really love, like share that, like, it's okay to, like comic books is okay to like video games, if you want to be a manga artist, like that's cool too. Like, like, you shouldn't like feel ashamed or like shunned by it, yeah, being an artist is like hard, like if you want it as a career, but like that doesn't mean you shouldn't like chase it or enjoy it, um I remember having a conversation with you, AJ, before, where I woke up one day and kind of just realized that I was like the stereotype of like poor poor starving artist. I was homeless, I was like living on food stamps for many years when I was homeless. Like, there's a time where I was living off of $5 a day, and I was like, oh shit, like like everything that parents worry about, like, that happened to me basically. um and that's not everybody's circumstance, but like, i I never wavered in my commitment, because like I just stayed true to myself. So like, I don't know, like, if you do something with like full heart, I don't think you can necessarily ever be wrong, right? Like, because at least you like tried, or you like committed, and like maybe it didn't work out the way you wanted it, maybe it'll work out differently. Um yeah, like, you betting on yourself and like staying true to yourself, like even if it fails, like, will feel a lot better than like compromising for somebody else's like opinion of what you should do or who you should be. So
Well said.
yeah.
Thank you,
Awesome.
John.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Round of applause
Yeah.
for John
Yeah. Thank you.
Cody Clark.
Yeah.
Anyway, I hope you guys I hope you guys enjoyed like listening to John's story. It was my first time actually like listening to the entirety of it, because John is so quiet and just so, reserved sometimes. Like I never really thought to ask for more details, because
Mhm.
it's such a personal thing too. And I knew him later later on, when just as I was about to graduate art center actually. So like I didn't want to, intrude. But I really appreciate how he's so willing to talk so openly about his journey and his struggles. And his perseverance is super super inspiring. Yeah, and just like we talked about how he goes above and beyond to support his friends. Like John drove probably 2 hours from San Diego up here to LA just to record with us in person. Well, not just to record, but like just to hang out with us, because I think we're fun
Mhm.
to hang out with. I don't know. What else do we want to talk about? Oh, you want to talk
Uh,
about the beach party? Or
yeah, sure. It was so on my birthday, we usually try to get a bunch of friends and family together to celebrate at the beach. And Sally and John came over. Sally cooked us some amazing chashu ribs that her dad supervised. And
yeah.
when her dad gets involved, there's going to be a really good interview after. So we recorded in my guest room, and it was the first time recording in person since our first episode. So it was really nice to get everyone together and talk face to face and not be glitching or having technical. Well, we still had technical difficulties, but
We had a moment of panic. Like there was a good solid 10 minutes. I genuinely thought that we lost the interview,
oh my
but
god,
but it's okay. You know, we stayed focused, we didn't panic, and all is well.
yeah. And back to John, he really is one of the most empathetic, generous people. Amazing listener, just amazing guy, and we were lucky to have him in person, in the flesh, gracing our podcast. So just to tie it back into John, since he's the only one who wrote in to give us questions, we decided to answer one of his questions today. But the question that he asked was art school worth it? Which I thought was pretty relevant to John's conversation with us. So you want to go first? I can go first. You have
You can go
thoughts?
first. You can go first.
Yes, it was worth it. All right, your turn.
The end.
No,
What if
I
I just
think,
said? What if I just said no? It was not, and then we just end the podcast like
yeah, I
that.
mean, honestly, people might have already tuned out by this point.
Okay.
But I think it was. I think it might not be if you're a certain type of person, but I'm a someone who thrives uh, from tutelage of like a direct, like a person in front of me that's
Like a
sharing,
mentorship.
yeah, sharing their experience, sharing their life, sharing um, their stories. Seeing someone lay out a path that's achievable makes things more attainable in my mind. So it was formative, but also meeting everyone that I did at art school, I think is one of the number one things I always tell people that I took away was the friendships and the relationships, because you're kind of in the thick of it, in the trenches with your peers, and you go through this gauntlet and you come out like stronger. I guess it's what people would connect to the military or something, where you go through this insane experience and you come out the other side as like a ragtag crew of, I don't know. renegade pirate people. But
It's really funny. You're definitely not the first person to compare our art center, art school experience to like being in the trenches. Like like you've seen me at the worst. I've seen you at the worst,
yeah, totally.
and we still love and accept each other at our lowest point.
Well, it
And
makes
that
you more like
really, yeah,
John. You become more empathetic because you see
yeah,
the plight of other people and you've been there and you know how to. I don't know. I don't know if you know how to comfort them, but you know you understand where someone's coming from
yeah,
when they're not their best.
yeah. You're not as quick to judge for sure. I
But
mean,
yeah, it
if
was worth it for
yeah,
me. It was. I mean,
yeah,
it was a lot of money, and I had a lot of. You know, I was privileged enough to like. I was living at home, and I had people that could help co-sign all my loans and stuff, and
mm-hmm,
I think
yeah,
there's a lot of hoops to jump through, and it might not be worth it for some people, but for me, it was pretty invaluable.
yeah. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that it was worth it for me as well. A large part of that is mainly due to like similar to what John was saying, like the community was really important to me. Like, you know, so I think a lot of people like they go through middle school, high school as like the sole like art weird art creative kid and stuff, and like not having a group or just like friends who may or may not share the same interests. But I found my people at art center, and yeah, like that is the main core of my friends to this day, and it's been almost 10 years since I graduated. So that, which is crazy to think about, but I do want to, like, similarly to you, I had, the support of my family. My parents were able to co-sign loans, but it's also, if I haven't gone to art school, like, because it's 'cause I hesitate to tell people like it's the right, like it'll be worth it, because when I was
Yeah,
first
no.
entering in, I yeah, I had all these doubts, and people were saying, you can never go wrong by investing it in yourself. But I don't know, like investing in yourself is a good thing, but if you live in a world where other people may or may not rely on you, or need you have other responsibilities, that's a really tough call.
Hmm.
And
There are
yeah,
plenty,
I
plenty, and
yeah.
plenty of artists that have made it without having any formal education, and like I really
Mhm.
admire when I hear a story like that because I feel like it's a real trailblazer right there.
Yeah, for sure. That's, I mean, it's extra tough, and it really does take like a special type of person to do that. I definitely needed people around me. I needed to like feed off of their energy and their like hard work and their drive, and be inspired by them. And also, like, I think we had a really good experience in school, but you know, maybe someone else who went to art center like did not. I'm sure there's a lot of people that
Hundreds of people definitely don't share the same sentiment as us.
yeah, and maybe didn't like anyone they met in person, It is, a lot of it is luck. Like, I'm
Yeah.
extremely lucky that, I met such a great group of passionate and driven people who I vibe with. But sometimes you just, like, the class you enter into, it's not right, and
Hmm.
that sucks. And that may start, if that's not right, and then you don't find the education part of it, as satisfying, then you might start looking around going, what am I doing here?
But that was not the case for us.
Nope.
So
Nope.
I
We
actually
were
would
very
love
lucky.
I would love for John to answer that question. Might have an idea of what he'd say, but
All right, John,
It would be much more
message us
articulate, much more
if if you're
nuanced than what we said.
listening.
Yeah, Sean, we'll send you an email.
But yeah, that we can only talk about what we know, and that was our experience.
And what I know is this script. As always, any questions, comments, concerns, guest suggestions, art director's emails, job opportunities, spams or scams? Spams? Spam. Spam or
I didn't write
scams?
it, dude. You wrote this.
Email us at pleinairpodcast@gmail.com and we'll try to answer you.
And as always, thank you to the PA boys, Fernie, Keith, and John for the music, and also the ghostwriter AJ, and our absent audio engineer, Vincent.
This episode was brought to you by unpaid invoices and emails that we hope don't find you well.
Fuck you, pay me.
That's right. See you later.
Bye bye.